Barbra Streisand.
Yeah.
You know, we're together all the time. It's a big family.
You know, families can get messy, right?
I didn't know of Whitney's story until I was sent this project, and I, first of all, was amazed that I didn't know it, and it felt like this is a story that people should know, and if I don't know it, there's probably other people who don't. But also, you know, the way that she sort of took the worst things that happened to her and forged them into her biggest success, that felt inspirational to me, and it felt cinematic to me, and it also felt like using that sort of exciting story as a way to talk about misogyny and dealing with sort of toxic workplaces and the compromises you end up making with yourself and how to navigate that path. That it just felt like a really a really cinematic, interesting way to talk about some things I've been interested in for a long time.
I built Tinder with them. If they can just delete me, it's like they've done nothing wrong.
You say anything, they can sue.
It was super important to us to just do do her story justice and make sure we took that responsibility as seriously as possible. So my writing partner and I did a massive research project. I felt like I was back in college in terms of doing the deep dive on, reading every single article, every single interview, poring over the court documents, every page. The text messages, Justin's text messages in the film are real, taken right from the evidence of of her lawsuit. So it was all about getting that base and really being confident that we knew that we had as much information as is publicly available, everything we could do, and then shaping it into a narrative and finding the version that feels cinematic. And how do you tell a story that's not just a bunch of Wikipedia facts, but like really digging into, having a take on it and having, where you can't be 100% accurate because either you don't have the information or it's not cinematic. How do we sort of tell the emotional truth of that story? Nothing's obvious. It's all a journey, and it's all like a very, it's a creative process as much as a research process. But for me, it's because my favorite sort of true stories aren't cradle to grave, here's what happened, A, B, C, D. It was about having a perspective. So for me, this film, Whitney's arc is about sort of starting out. She's brilliant and sort of and sharp and dedicated from the start, but at the beginning she's sort of working within the status quo and working within the current system to succeed. And then by film's end, she decides to sort of buck the system and risk her personal success to succeed. And so that's sort of the guiding light. So it's like, that's the plot. Here are the key things in her life that happened to make that when I read her story, the things that stuck out to me as sort of the factual things that happened. And then, and then where do we fill in, for example, when the million user moment happens with the sprinklers, as far as I know, there was no sprinkler disaster at Tinder, but it was like, how do we create the emotional excitement and have the audience feel how thrilling that must have been for those characters to hit that enormous milestone? And then how do we make that, feel cinematic? So it's that sort of thing. I feel like so much of my job as writer and director is sort of trying to craft the audience experience and craft what it feels like. And so in that scene, I wanted to feel this huge sense of accomplishment. We want to see that Whitney and her team have like done the impossible. Like it's like a 1 in a million, like everyone's trying to have a top app. These are a bunch of kids in their early mid-20s who create this top app. And so how do you create sort of like as euphoric a feeling as possible? And so having something where it's literally like, 5 a.m. and it's pouring on them sort of creates this permission structure for the actors and the characters to like act almost a little larger than life, like hugging each other and screaming. And it's sort of like, tonally, it sort of helps elevate that moment.
You are the brains behind this Tinder explosion.
I just want 1 million users.
There's an article about how pervasive the dick pics are.
They report and nothing happens.
These chicks are just reporting guys who reject them.
You do not really mean that.
Yeah, I mean, we need to be practical, not emotional.
first of all, she's just like an absolute powerhouse. It's crazy. I mean, she, I said that I did a big research process. She also came in and re-watched and reread like everything that I had done to really get, not only try to sort of get Whitney's voice and mannerisms, but more so also just understand where she was coming from and getting, as much information as possible. So she was coming to set every day with like a massive, like a massive base of research and sort of knowledge and perspective. So that really put us in an amazing place to start with. And then in terms of that scene particularly, it's a really tough, it's a tough one. And because, it was written in the script sort of how you see it. It was written like where we're cutting, the idea is that because she's having these panic attacks and she's reading all this bad press and it's in this sort of like, we call it the spiral, like a spiral of depression and anxiety and stress and drinking and, all these things that Whitney's sort of alluded to in some different press that we've seen. I wanted to try to make that feel as visceral as possible for the audience. So it's written that way in the script with all those locations and all that cutting and faster. And so, Lily said, is this how it's gonna be and how, what do you need for me? And because I'm planning on kind of going full performance, even though it's little pieces. And I said that's definitely yes. Like the more you can give, even for those split-second shots, the better. And so it was a huge lift for her because it wasn't, hey, we're shooting the breakdown scene right now. It was like 2 full days of going around the apartment and doing all these pieces where she had to be like in a pretty vulnerable state the whole time. And so I'm, so grateful that she did that and, and was fully game to do it. And then visually, it was really about us trying to create that same, like how visceral can we make this? She's giving everything performance-wise. This whole thing's supposed to feel sort of chaotic and disorienting. And so, working with my cinematographer, Doug Emmett, to create, we did like a lot of little camera tricks. We had, he had little crystals he was holding in front of the lens. We unseated the lens from the camera. All these things to sort of make it feel as discombobulating and disconcerting as possible, and try to, just have it feel like that inner chaotic feeling, bringing that, out visually.
Young people don't date online. If we break through that stigma, suddenly we've got complete market share of all millennial dating. Just give me $600 and a plane ticket, and I will come back with the next Fortune 500 company.
Yeah, I take casting incredibly seriously, and I'm always just, because I'm co-writing the script as well, I sort of know the baseline of what I'm looking for, and I'm looking for people who are gonna like blow that out of the water. So it's like I know what the sort of scripted version of this scene is, and then who's gonna take it to the next level, who's gonna think of more layers than I thought of, who's gonna bring more layers of life. Of course, Lily did that in spades. Amazing, but across the board, we really, to even just like the office members that fill out our team, we're really looking for people who would give that unexpected little reaction or that moment, or the character, this Pedro Correa who plays Diego in Tinder. He was like, I asked if anyone rode a hoverboard, and he was like, I ride a hoverboard. I actually ride it embarrassingly well. I was like, great, do you mind just hoverboarding around in every scene, because I feel like that's gonna add a lot. So it's things like that that really sort of added dimension to the story. It sort of didn't strike me how much of a period piece it was until we started getting into those details. You're like, oh, that wasn't that long ago, right? That was like, a couple years ago. And then you start looking at, my first conversation with our costume designer and she started showing me these clothes, and I was like, those are so ugly. And she's like, no, this is what you wore. Like, we all wore it. And I literally went back in my iPhone and was like, you're right. That's exactly what people were doing. And like the phones, like the first time that the prop person took out the iPhone from that time, no one believed it. It was like, it's this dumb little thing, but it's like way tinier than you think it is, And creating, I like just getting the songs that were, popular at the time. There's this song, Barbara Streisand by Duck Sauce. I don't know if you know that song, but it was one of those like flash in the pan, like it was everywhere for like a few months. And I like had such a specific memory of that being like the song of the moment. So having that play at the tech party, really like it, it's about like setting you in a time and place and having it feel as sort of specific as possible.
Also, just an aside, I did not recognize Dan Stevens at all. I know there's probably been loads of people saying that, but like
there really have, and I think it's that he has like, you don't realize those iconic blue eyes are like just so you don't realize how much of him, because the first time he came to set with the contacts on, everyone was like, whoa, it's a different person. I mean, I think it's part of what works well for him and his process was to sort of disappear into this role and really take it on fully.